Today's lesson is, should teenagers be banned from social media? Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to be talking about social media, okay? These are kinds of programs that you can use on your phone mostly. And, of course, you can see posts from other people. You can post stuff there yourself. I think some of the most popular ones are, TikTok and Facebook.
Instagram,
etc. Snapchat, indeed. There are places that you can go check out, and you can sit there and thumb your screen endlessly looking at the posts by all your friends and from other people as well. But I guess that's causing some problems with teenagers. They spend so much time on their phones, and they don't really focus on their studies. And maybe, of course, they could improve themselves in other ways. So, of course, some people are suggesting that, hey, we need to ban social media. That sounds kind of extreme, but maybe we can discuss this and come to some conclusions ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. I think over the last few years, especially after COVID, when a lot of young people were stuck at home and spending almost all of their time on social media, people have started to become a little bit more concerned about some of the negative effects that social media might have on young people and their lives as they grow up. And of course, there are certain countries. Australia has just announced a ban on young people using social media, I think across many different platforms. And there are even more countries that are starting to ban not only the phones, but using social media in school. Phones are no longer allowed in classrooms and things like that. And I think a lot of people are feeling a little bit more comfortable, maybe not the teenagers, but the parents, the educators, people like that are feeling a little more comfortable that getting kids away from their phones more than they have been will have positive results. We'll see good things come from that. But, of course, if you're a young person, you might have very different opinions. So we're going to be kind of reading a bunch of different opinions of different people, both young people, parents, teachers, social media influencers, people who make their business, make their money off social media, and it will be a very interesting and hopefully illustrative discussion of social media and whether or not young people should be banned from using it, if so, when, how, and all that other stuff. So let's get into it. Should teenagers be banned from social media? Social media plays a major role in the lives of teenagers, but concerns about its negative impacts have led some to propose age-based bans. Those in favor of such bans argue that they would protect teens from harmful effects, while those against the bans believe the restriction of social media could infringe on teenagers' rights. Here's what people from different walks of life have to say.
大家好，标题中介绍动词 ban， 它的意思是禁止或是取缔。例如 Because of a number of violent scenes, the movie was banned in some countries. 这部电影因有一些暴力场景而在部分国家禁播。或者 The school decided to ban cell phones during class hours. 校方决定禁止课堂期间使用手机。另外补充这个字也可以当名词使用。找个例句The politician favored a ban on all pork imports from that country. 该政客支持禁止从该国进口所有猪肉。另外一句 The athlete received a one-year ban from competing because of cheating. 该运动员因作弊而被禁赛1年。下一个看到名词 impact 表示巨大影响或是冲击。例如 Dana's speech had a strong impact on the audience. Dana 的演讲对听众产生了强烈的影响。或是The environmental impact of pollution on marine life is alarming. 污染对海洋生物的环境影响令人担忧。另外补充这个字也可以当动词使用，念 impact。找个例句 Eugene's decision to leave the company will impact the entire team. Eugene 离开公司的决定将影响整个团队。另外一句 Many cities and towns were impacted by the severe storm. 许多城市和城镇受到那场严重暴风的影响。接着看到动词 infringe， 它的意思是侵犯、侵害，也可以是违反或是违背的意思。例如 Unauthorized use of copyrighted material infringes the law. 未经授权使用版权素材违反法律。也可以说 To avoid infringing any rules, they consulted a legal expert. 为了避免违反任何规定，他们咨询了法律专家。
Okay, so here's our introductory paragraph. It says, social media plays a major role in the lives of teenagers, but concerns about its negative impacts have led some to propose age-based bans. Okay, so of course this introduces the topic to us. We're talking about social media, and we're talking about whether social media should be limited or restricted or even banned. Okay, why are people worried about this? What's so troublesome about social media? What's so bad about social media? Well, of course, it's very dominant in the lives of teenagers. They spend pretty much, 5 or 6 hours a day scrolling their phones. And so there are concerns or worries about the negative impacts of social media. So an impact, of course, is a strong influence. And indeed, these social media platforms could be causing problems with teenagers. I noticed a lot of teenagers are starting to look like turtles nowadays because their heads are bent down all the time looking at their screens. So they're starting to, I think that's going to affect their spinal cord, I think.
That's true.
It could have some physical effects, but I think they're more worried about social effects, whether or not they're actually talking to other people. Like boys are losing the ability to court girls. They don't really talk to girls anymore. They just play video games all the time. So indeed, some people are concerned about the negative influences or the impacts of those social media platforms.
Yeah, let's have just a very brief look at some of the main arguments both for and against having a social media bans. Of course, there's much more to it. This is a very complicated issue with many different things to consider. But see, these are some of the most common arguments for and against. It says those in favor of such bans, so those who want a ban. If you're in favor of something, you want it, you think it's a good thing, you would vote yes for that. If you're against something, you don't like it, you think it's a bad idea, and you would vote no. So let's see what the people who want the bans, who believe the bans would be good, what will they say? Those in favor of such bans argue, or say, basically this is their position, their point of view, that they would protect teens from harmful effects. So protect teens from bullying, protect teens from problems with feeling comfortable in their own bodies, right? A lot of young people, especially girls, compare themselves to models on Instagram and feel that they're unattractive or things like that. There's bullying there that goes on. It's led to teen suicides and things like that. Those are some of the more common harmful effects people often point to or cite. While those against the bans, those who don't want the ban, maybe young people, believe the restriction of social media could infringe on teenagers' rights. Okay, well, yeah, if older people are allowed to write about what they want and do what they want on the internet, why aren't young people allowed to do it? Some people would argue back, but we also have laws for smoking and drinking and other things that can be detrimental to your life. So that's why we should have a restriction on social media for young people in the same way. A restriction is basically a rule that limits or controls things. I mentioned restrictions on when you are allowed to buy alcohol or cigarettes or drive a car. And even if you're driving a car, there are restrictions on how fast you can drive or where you can drive and things like that. So basically, limit or rules that stop people from kind of doing crazy stuff, that stop things from getting dangerous and getting out of control. These would be restrictions of some kind. And some people are afraid that these restrictions, these rules stopping kids from using social media, could infringe on their rights. This is kind of a legal term. It basically means you're coming into my area. You're kind of stepping onto my property or into my rights. Those are your rights. You're allowed to do whatever you want in your life, but don't tell me what to do with my life, that kind of idea. So you don't want to infringe on someone's property. You could be accused of trespassing. You don't want to infringe on someone's rights by locking them up or preventing them from speaking their mind or saying their opinion or something like that. So it will basically step on their rights. It will take away rights that they should have as equal citizens, of course, under the law in a society. All right, so that's almost the end of our introductory paragraph. Here's what people from different walks of life have to say. A good intro to the second main part of our article. Different walks of life. People from different walks of life. That basically means people from different parts of society, different kinds of people. We're going to be hearing from both young people, old people, people who know a lot about it, people who are affected by it. Let's listen to some different opinions in the second part of the article.
A. Emma, 16, high school student. Social media is how I connect with my friends and keep up with trends. Banning social media feels like adults just trying to punish us, instead of teaching us how to use it responsibly. We need guidance, not restrictions.
B. Michael, 45, parent. Even many adults can't handle social media, so of course teens have trouble with it. As a father of 2 teenagers, I see the negative effects every day. Sleep issues, anxiety, and distraction from school. While a ban might seem extreme, chances are that it would give kids a break from endless scrolling.
第二部分介绍名词 anxiety， 表示焦虑或是不安。可以说 Brett is feeling some anxiety about his job interview tomorrow. Brett 对明天的工作面试感到有些焦虑。又或者说 Anne suffers from anxiety caused by school pressure. Anne 因学校的压力而受焦虑之苦。继续看到动词 scroll， 它的意思是滚动或是滑动。例如Everyone on the MRT was scrolling through social media on their phone. 捷运上的每个人都在他们手机上滑动社群媒体。
再一句 I scrolled through all my emails and read the most interesting ones first. 我卷动页面浏览我所有的电子邮件，然后先看最有趣的那些。
Okay, so there we have the opinion of Emma and Michael. One is young and one is older. Let's hear from Emma first. She's 16 years old, and she is a high school student. Here's what she says. Social media is how I connect with my friends and keep up with trends. Banning social media feels like adults just trying to punish us instead of teaching us how to use it responsibly. We need guidance, not restrictions. So we can tell from this testimony that Emma is against those restrictions. She is against banning social media. She says social media is important to her because it's how she connects with her friends. It's how she maintains her social life with her friends. And then she can keep up with trends. Of course, if you're young, you need to keep up with things. You need to know what's going on and you need to react. Otherwise, you'll be considered old-fashioned and you're not keeping up with the times. People won't want to talk to you. They won't want to be friends with you anymore. So, of course, you need to keep up with those trends. You need to know what's popular. And she says that if social media is banned, it will feel like adults are just trying to punish us and they're not actually trying to teach us something. They should actually teach us how to use it responsibly. And we need guidance, not restrictions. Indeed, if we restrict this, we're just not really learning anything. Maybe the teachers are just too lazy themselves to teach us how to have better social lives.
Well, that's a pretty good argument, I would say. And yes, sometimes it would be good if the parents would teach the kids and be a little bit more involved with what the kids are doing on social media. That would be the guidance that Emma is kind of asking for. But Michael is the next person we hear from. Michael is 45 and he's a parent, so he's a dad of some young people. And he also has a good point. He says even many adults can't handle social media, so of course teens have trouble with it. So yes, there are grown-ups, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s. They can't handle social media. They spend too much time on it. It affects them in negative ways as well. So he kind of says, so of course teens, young people without the wisdom and knowledge and experience and maybe self-control, maybe that's not surprising that they also have trouble with it. As a father of 2 teenagers, I see the negative effects every day. So he's speaking from his own experience here. These are the things he's seen affecting his kids. Sleep issues, anxiety, and distraction from school. Sleep issues because maybe they're up all night texting things or just looking at pictures and stuff. Anxiety is like nervousness, stress, fear, worry, that fear of missing out, that FOMO. People often talk about the feeling of anxiety that you might get bullied for an unattractive picture maybe or something like that. So just generally a lack of security and a sense of sort of peace in your life that might come from being too busy online. And of course, distraction from school. I mean, people have been saying about this, about television and about video games and stuff for many, many years, many generations now. It'll take your mind off school. It's more fun than doing your math homework, looking at TikTok videos. So kids' marks might start to suffer if they spend too much time on social media. He goes on to say, while a ban might seem extreme, it might seem like a really tough measure to take, like going a little bit too far, chances are that it would give kids a break from endless scrolling. So it might be a little bit more medicine than the problem really requires, but if we give this pause or give this break to the kids from their endless scrolling, they might find that later on, if we remove the ban or certainly lighten the restrictions, they won't go back to it. They'll have sort of broken their addiction to social media and the endless scrolling. And scrolling is that thing that you do often with your thumb or maybe with your finger on your phone, and you're kind of swiping things up. You're scrolling things up or down as you go from story to story on social media or video to video on TikTok or post to post on Facebook. You're kind of flipping through it. Scrolling on a phone is like flipping through the pages of a magazine.
Yeah, he should talk. I can imagine him sitting at the dinner table with his daughters playing on his phone endlessly as well. I've seen
looking
that
at
all
sports
over the place.
scores and fantasy
exactly.
football.
Or he's going to say, hey, I need to check the stock prices, we need to do this, so I need to be using my phone. Yeah.
Dads don't do that.
Of course not. Of course they want to engage their children all the time in conversation and play board games with them and go outside and play sports. Of course they do. Well, that brings us to the end of these two testimonies here from Emma and Michael. Let's go on to Alicia now. She's a social media influencer and she's 28 years old. Let's hear from her.
C. Alicia, 28, social media influencer. Social media isn't just for fun, it's a business platform. Many teens use social media to start building skills or careers early. A ban would deny them those opportunities and could widen the digital skills gap later in life.
第三部分介绍形容词 digital 指数位的或是数字的。举例来说 The clothing store has started to focus on digital sales. 这间服饰店开始把重心放在数位销售上。或是 Some people feel that digital images lack the warmth of those captured on film. 有些人觉得数位照片缺少底片拍摄照片的温度。
Okay, so here's what Alicia has to say. Again, she's a social media influencer, so I guess she has some sort of page or something or a channel or something, and people come to watch her videos or whatever. And here's what she has to say. Social media isn't just for fun, it's a business platform. That much is true, of course. Some people do play on their phones. They do go to social media websites just for fun, to socialize with their friends, but it's also a place where people conduct business. They make contacts with people, they arrange business deals and things like that. So it does have some practical use.
Very interesting, of course, but she is making her money. She is using this as her career, so she obviously has a vested interest in having young people use it. But she has a few good points. She says many teens use social media to start building skills or careers early. Possibly that could be true. Maybe they're building skills, they're learning things by watching videos on social media, or they're focusing on having a career, being an influencer themselves. Personally, I would argue back and say, yeah, but they should be going to school at that time. They should be getting an education at that time and not learning how to be a social media influencer. That is a much more realistic way of facing your future. But Alicia also says the ban would deny them, would sort of take away this right or take away this experience or take away these opportunities. And it could, she also adds, widen the digital skills gap later in life. It's a tough argument for me because you can get computer skills without being on social media, but that's kind of what she's talking about here. Digital skills, computer skills, the difference between kids who grow up with smartphones and computers and the kids who grow up in poor country where they don't even have books, and computers and personal cell phones are something that people don't have. Of course, when those people then move to another country where you need to know how to use computers, those people don't have the skills required for the job market and that kind of thing. I don't know. I've heard a lot of people saying that kids kids these days, they spend so much time on social media using these apps, their computer skills are actually worse than the generation before. They don't know how the computer actually works. They just know how to use the different apps and programs. So I'm not sure that argument is as convincing to me as the first two that we read, but very interesting to get a social media influencer's point of view.
It's a little influential to me because I'm kind of ashamed. I took a broadcasting and film production in university. I know how to make films using actual film and tape recordings, but I don't really know how to use modern digital video software programs, even though the concepts are probably exactly the same. You just need to use it differently. So she might have a point here. If you do have those skills in the digital world, you might be able to enhance your career in the future. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. It's time now to listen to our dear teacher, Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。这篇文章是关于青少年该被禁用社群媒体吗？好，那课文第一部分提到，反对禁令的人认为限制社群媒体可能会侵害青少年的权利。文中他用到名词 restriction 来表达限制、约束，那它是来自动词 restrict。 我们来学习它的字首字根。好，看到 strict 或是 strain 或是 stress 这一类的字根，它有绑、束缚或是拉直、拉紧的语义，带有那种压力达到最极致的意思。在 restrict 这个字当中，字首 re 表示 back 向后，字根 strict 表示拉紧。那向后拉紧应该可以联想到 restrict 它就有限制、约束的意思了。我们顺便补充两个这一类字根的单字。第一个是 constrain， 它的字首 con 表示一起，字根 strain 表示拉紧。那当我们用绳子把东西绑住，把绳子两端一起拉紧，用这样的画面，也许可以联想到 constrain 它有束缚或是限制的语义。第二个补充的是 distress， 它的字首 dis 因为碰到 s 开头的字根而变形为 di， 那这个字首表示分离。字根 stress 表示拉紧，同学们可以想象，当你拥有的东西被强拉走，或是两个相依的人手拉得紧紧的，却被强迫分离，这样是不是会造成痛苦呢？用这个方式，也许可以联想到 distress， 它有使苦恼、使忧伤的意思。好，那么课文第二部分的 Michael 他有提到，连许多成年人都无法处理社群媒体，所以青少年当然也会遇到问题。那他是用 have trouble with it 来表达遇到问题，这边的 it 指的就是社群媒体。好，那我们要介绍一下 have trouble 或是 have a hard time 或是 have difficulty 或是 have problems， 这些用语后面都可以接 with 加名词，或是接动词 ing 来表达难以怎么样怎么样，或是做什么什么有困难。那特别注意 trouble 和 difficulty 是不可数名词，固定要用单数型。举例来说， Jake's had trouble finding a stable job。Jake 一直难以找到稳定的工作。好，那相反的，我们可以用到 have no problems、have no trouble 或是 have no difficulty doing something 来表达做某事没有问题、没有困难，或是也可以用 have an easy time doing something 来表达做某事很容易、毫无困难。举例来说， We had no problems finding a parking space。我们找停车位没有困难，轻轻松松就找到了。或是 He had an easy time beating his opponent。他轻轻松松就打败对手了。那最后补充一下，我们刚刚学到 have a hard time 的用法。可是如果你要说 give somebody a hard time， 这则是指说找某人麻烦、刁难某人、让某人不好过的意思哦。好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天单字吧。
Ban. Schools often ban the use of phones during class time. Impact.Advances in technology continue to have huge impacts on society. Restriction. Local authorities lifted the restriction on outdoor events after the weather improved. Anxiety. Denise felt a lot of anxiety before her big speech. Scroll. If you scroll down to the bottom of the web page, you'll see our company's address. Digital. Many people prefer digital payments over paying with cash.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.